You guys can see my screen now. Hello, any issues guys? You guys are able to see my screen?
Yes, I am able to see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So we have seen something called project yesterday, right? So what exactly is it and how we can actually set up different things in Android and all, right? So today we'll just go through the folder structure of Android. Basically all these folder structure which are standard for all the Android apps you are going to develop from now on, right? So we'll just start with the first folder called this. So this is your project name. Also you can keep the same thing as your app name, right? So your app name sometimes can be different from your project name. It can happen, right? So whenever I say app name, it is the APK name which you are going to deploy in your machine, in your phone, right? That is your app name, right? And then you have next folder called source folder. So this source folder, source folder is something where all the business classes are created, right? So business classes in the sense the classes where you are going to write the actual logic, right? All your classes will be stored or created under the folder called source, right? So under source you can create your own packages. So package is nothing but your directories, right? So under directory you have your classes, right? You can see there is one default class which got created called main.java, right? All the Java classes will be with the extension called .java, and the class name, which is public class main activity, will be same as your file name. So that is your simple Java class we have. Now this Java class was defaultly created when we created as default layout called our activity, first activity, right? So while creation of project we created one activity. So for that activity we got a default class called my main activity, right? So in this way you can also create your own classes. You can just right click on this, new, you have a class, right? If you want to create a class, you can create a classes, and this class will be created under your source folder, on which you can actually create your default package as such, right? So that is your source folder. Now the next folder is gen. So this is auto generated folder. So in this gen folder these things are something which will be generated for different controls or widgets or different IDs or different styles in your Android. Now you will understand this r.java, which is resource.java, when we actually move on with our Android, right? When we actually start coding on Android, and at that time we'll actually see how exactly it is saving or storing something, right? And this gen file, which is generated Java files, are completely dynamic files. Don't ever touch them. So your Android or Eclipse will take care of generating these based on the changes you are doing across the whole project, right? So that is your gen folder, under which, if you can see here, it will create a same package name as you have a package, right? Where it will create a same package, and under your build config you have something called debug value true or false. So while developing you will always keep this debug as true, right? And when you are actually generating APK files to upload it to Play Store or sell it up or deliver it to client, then you should always keep it false. So it will be in a one file called build config file. Do auto generated again, and don't modify ever again until unless it is needed, right? And the next file is your r.java. R is nothing but a resource, right? Resource in the sense all the resources whatever we have, right? So the folder you can see here, res. Res is nothing but a resource folder, right? So we have so many different type of resources like videos, right? You have your audio files, you have your images, you have your style sheets, you have your dimension XMLs, different type of XMLs, right? You have different things as such. So in that, so whenever you need some changes to be made, right? So to some activity or anything, they will be automatically reflecting here. Now what is the use of this class, which is r.java? So the main use is to create a collaboration between different activities in your Android. Now what is collaboration? Now obviously if you are actually creating any app, right, which is your Android app, right, then obviously what you will be doing here is you will actually create some, let us say 10 activities, and you want to access some controls in one activity with some other controls in some other activity, right? So that is nothing but a collaboration. So from first activity you are trying to access some control, right, and you want to pass the same data to some other activity via control data, right? So for those things we will be using this r.java, which is resources Java file, right, in order to get the data, right? Now that is what is your r.java file, which will be created under your gen folder. Now this gen folder is completely dynamically generated as such. Now you can see here, even if I delete something, let me just delete it, right, delete it here. Now you can see if I save this, right, you can see everything got generated again. The complete file, right, is automatically generated based on, it will actually scan the whole project. Wherever it says, okay, there are some IDs or some images and all, it will actually get them and will create the resource files in your r.java. So this is about your gen folder, which is auto-generated folder by your Java. Now the next three folders which you can see here, which is of this symbol, is nothing but your Android jars, right? So a jar file is something where whatever APIs you are going to use, like widgets or or communication parts or intent classes or activity classes, right? So they are actually wrapped up in one file called jar file. Jar is nothing but Java archive, right? The expansion acronym of jar is Java archive file, right? So all the classes and different functionalities of Android. So what they have done is they have just packaged it up completely, and they have provided in one entity called jar. So that is your jar files. Now you can see it will be each and everything will be different jars will be added up in different folders. Don't worry about that, because this Eclipse will take care of adding jars. Now the question here is, if you want to add any third-party jar, now how should you add? Now there are two ways to add your third-party jars. First way, you can directly add to your lib folder. You can see there is one folder called libs. Libs is nothing but your libraries folder, right? If you have any third-party jar, let us say you want to add a JDBC jar, right? Then you gonna add the JDBC jar to your libs folder. Or what you can do is you can go to project, right click on that, you can go to properties. So in this properties folder you have something called Java build path. Now you can see in this Java build path you also have a tab called libraries, right? Whatever you can see over here, you can actually see them completely here, right? Now you have an option here that if you want to add any third-party jar, you can select either of them, add jar or add external jar, right, or add library, anything, right? If you add it over here, it will be automatically exposed to your complete current application of your Android, right? So this is how we can actually add a third-party library into our Android app, right? So those are these. Now next thing is assets. So this folder of assets is something where you can actually create assets like images or files or different things which you, or some lighter DBs, right? If you feel that okay, that will be used across my Android, you can actually create an basic assets. Don't worry, we'll be checking out how we can actually use this folder in order to save some resources, right? And the next folder is bin folder, which is very important folder. So this bin folder is something where this is like whenever you compile your project, now compiling is nothing but, you can see here, how can we compile a project of Java using Eclipse is, you can go to project, or you can just right click on this, right? So basically if you go to run as, right, you can actually run the program directly, right? Or if you want to clean and compile, you can see an option called clean. When you clean this, you have one more option created, that build automatically, right? Which means whenever you run some Java, or when you code some Java class, and when you save it, with the save click, it automatically will generate new class files. That is your build automatically. Now that's what, whenever you clean, which means it will actually delete the old class files and it will rebuild all the project files from scratch. Now that is what happens, right? Now if you can see here in bin, everything got deleted, right? So previously we had some APK files, right? Everything got deleted now. If I run it again, when I run this project, right? Now it says launching. Now you can see all files got created again, which is my first.apk. Now my first is nothing but a project name and your application name. Application is nothing but your APK, right? It got created here, right? And then all the resource files, whatever you have, like draw, like you have images, everything will be packaged in a single folder called bin folder, right? That's why you don't have to carry the complete project in order to run this app in a mobile. You can just take up this APK, just use it and deploy it and run it, right? So that is more than enough. You will get all the images, everything in this APK itself, right, to actually deploy in your project. Now that is called your bin folder. And libs anyways is something where you can actually add your third-party libraries. By default, you can see that there is an Android support jar which is already there, right? Now let's go to the next one, which is very important folder called resource folder, which is RES folder. Now this folder is something where we will be saving all different resources. Now what are the different resources we have in Android are your activity. First, screen itself is a resource. Your images is a resource, right? Your font styles is a resource. Your something called sentences, where you don't want to hardcode your configurations. You want to do a complete configuration of your text areas, right? Is a resource file, right? Your dimensions, like you want to mention that, okay, this text box should be this much height and width and all, right? So there are some dimensions which are XML files. All these files are actually created under a folder called RES folder, which is a resource folder. Fine. Now in this resource folder, first if you can see, there is a folder called drawable. Don't worry, this is all the folders are same basically, but based on the density pixels, right, we have different drawable folders. But basically when we use drawable, either of them will be used, right? Based on Android will take care of each one to use. Now there are so many things like high, which is HDPI, which is high density per inch, right? Low density per inch, medium density per inch and all, right? And X high density, double X high density, right? These are something, let us say if you are running this app in a phone, mobile phone, right, which is of maybe 4 inch or 2 inch, you need some resolution of image. If you are actually taking the same tab, same application, and if you actually deploy it in a tab, that I say, right, which is of some 11 inch or some bigger one, then obviously you need image which is of high resolution. So based on that, whatever is needed will be taken from this drawable folder. But internal to the Android, whenever we are going to code, right, each and every drawable folder will be exposed as a straightforward drawable folder, right? Now the next one is layout. Now this layout is the folder where whatever activity you want to create. Now here activities are two things, right? One is your basic UI and the corresponding class of that UI. Now here in Android, the UI part is, all the UI parts are direct XML files, right? There is nothing like JSP or some AWT windows or swing windows or applets. No, nothing. Here in Android, it is a very simple XML which is a UI of your activity window. You can see here, this is the interpreted UI. If I go to XML view, there are two views here, which is graphical view and your XML view, right? Now you can see that, okay, all your XML views are over here, right? So that is how you can actually create all your activities here. Even if you just create activity from here, which is right click new, you have other, so here you have something called Android activity, right? Even if you select this part, which is Android activity, even then it will directly create activity over here. Now two things happen here. So when you actually create an activity, corresponding to that a class will be created in here, which is here. Now if you can check that out, when I create, right click Android activity here, let me call it as second activity as such. Right, this is my class name, right? So this is my class name which will come over here into my this package, second activity. And then we have something called layout, right? So the layout is nothing but the XML name which you want to give, activity underscore second, right? Let me click on finish. When I click on finish, now you can see by default your activity underscore second got created, and you can see that this is your activity, right? Yes, Geeta? Yeah, Geeta, go ahead. Hello? Geeta, yes, what's your doubt here? It says you are in mute, Geeta. You can just unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was saying, whenever I go to create a new XML route, hello?
Yeah, go on.
Then my class is not generated. I need to also go and create a new class again.
No, you can see here, right? Your class also got generated.
Yeah, but for me it never happens. I mean, I don't know why.
Your class is not generated?
Yeah, and then I'll have to go and add new class, which is just a Java class.
No, it should not happen actually, because if you are actually creating your XML, I mean XML or rather your activity, right? It should create your class. It should not happen. So
Okay, I'll try to do once again.
Yeah, try out. It should not.
Yeah, because
you have downloaded the latest one. I think you have you have latest than my Eclipse and my Android setup actually. Right? It should actually create that. So is it the same case with you? Okay, fine. So that is our activity, and based on the activity, the class is created. Now you will get one more doubt that okay, how this activity and class is connected, right? Or this class and activity are connected. Don't worry about that. So when we actually go into the activity part learning, then we'll understand how the activity and the class are interconnected with each other, right? Now that is our layout folder. Now the next one is menu folder, right? So this menu folder is something. So whenever we run this, Android application, right? You can see that I got my first, which is my Hello World program. Now there is one menu here. When I click on this, by default it will actually show up one menu, which is settings menu. Now where did we define this? Right? We didn't create a menu, right? But by default, whenever you create any Android activity in Eclipse, right, latest Eclipse, and if you are using API version greater than 15, then what happens is by default one menu item will be created. Now you can see if I go to my menu here, you can see there is only one item called settings, right? There is a title. Now this title is nothing but here. If you go here, now you can see settings, right? That's how we are getting that settings. Now if I just say my settings here, you can change your name. Don't worry about this, what is happening. I'll actually explain everything once we get into the strings and all, right? Now when I run this, rather let me just clean this up first, and now run it as an Android application. Now when I run this now, so the old one will be closed. And it will actually, okay, installation was success, and it is opening your new activity. Now this is your new activity. Now here, now when I click on my menu, right, now you can see my settings, right. So this is something which is created in your menu folder, right. In this menu folder it is created, right, which is here in my main.xml. You can see that there is a XML called menu, where you can actually add up any number of items you want, right, and actions, whatever you want to do on actions. So we'll see when we actually come to the big topic called menus. There is one topic called menus where we'll be checking out how differently you can actually create your menus, right, and all, right. Okay. Yeah, Nabila, go on.
Yeah.
What is the question?
Get to the emulator because I was that from where did you get?
I'm sorry?
Where did you get to the emulator, this part? Because I was following you up to the main.xml when you were under the menu file. After that, what did
Okay. Okay, so basically what I did was, so before starting our class itself, right, I ran this project and I kept my emulator ready, because emulator will take some time to start up, right. So I kept my emulator ready.
But where your emulator, you kept it ready? That's what my question is. I don't know.
Where your emulator?
I don't know how to get to the emulator and to get it ready.
I mean, we have already configured emulator in your machine, okay. So that was the folder which is a values folder, right. And then you have one very important file called manifest file. Now this Android manifest file is like, you know, your configuration file for your complete Android application. This is the only configuration file which you'll have for a complete Android, this app, the current app as such, right. Now let us go and see what exactly is there in your manifest file. So this manifest file is something where your directions will be written. So whenever you deploy your Android app into mobile, right, so what happens is your mobile, whenever you start that app, mobile will first interact with manifest file and it will check which activity to start in your app. Now basically, if your Android in your application, right, you can have any number of activities, right. Now you can see I have two different activities, right. So whenever I run this project, now we should mention somewhere that, okay, my activity underscore main is the first activity which should open whenever I run this app, right. Now where do we define that? So we do define that in our manifest file. Now in manifest file there are few things which are very important. The first thing is, you can see that the user SDK, right. Anyways, we have a root thing called manifest. So whenever we create an Android project, so this file will be created for you automatically, and in between whenever you are adding any activities, right, and doing some changes will be changed in your manifest file. The first thing is your SDK. Now this SDK is nothing but a minimum SDK version and the targeted SDK version. You remember when we created a project, right, at that time we just gave this SDK versions, right, that I want to develop this app which should support 8 and 17. Maybe if you create your Android application, you may get 18 here because you have upgraded your Android to 18th version, right. That's how you can actually get your 18th version over here, right. That is a user SDK. And then you have a very important tag called application. So this application, if you can see, let me just slice up this. Now in this application, now if you remember, there was an activity. So when I clicked on menu, right? When I clicked on menu, now you can see somehow the menu got open, right? So all these things are tied up, right? All these things are tied. Now you can see. So for this activity, my icon is some Android icon here, right? So how they are getting? So they are mentioned over here actually. In my application, you can see that I have an Android icon. In this icon, I said I have a IC launcher, right? Yes, Sanjay, go ahead.
Actually, I using this values, I have created some values over there.
Okay. What values you are talking about?
For text color. In text view, I have given some color attribute.
I didn't get your question, Sanjay.
You have a text view, right? Text view.
Okay. Text view. Okay.
For that, I have created. I want to give a color to that.
Okay.
So it was asking like Android color. Some colors it has given when I press the control space button.
Okay.
So there when I selected one color, it was showing your API is 14, but the minimum is.
Okay, minimum SDK you have to update it to 17, right?
I didn't get the message itself. Why it is showing like that? Because minimum is 8. So after 8, whatever I selected, it should get selected, right?
You should get, yes, you should get selected with the maximum one. Yeah, it should get.
But why it has shown like that? You have selected the API 14 and the minimum is 8. That kind of message I got.
Okay, minimum 8 you have selected. Have you selected 8 and 17? And when you try to use your color attribute, you got something called 14 version is not being used. Is that what you got?
Yes.
You shouldn't get that actually. You shouldn't get that.
Or else you can continue. I will try again and
yes. Try it once.
Screen and send to you.
Sure. Try, do that part. Yeah, that will be great. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That will be great. No issues. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now here, so that was your icon. So this icon is nothing but your complete applications or complete apps icon. You can change whenever you want. Now you can see that everything is accessible from your folders over here. In my drawable, how can I access this drawable is using your @ So this @ is something which is used to access your resource folders, right? You can see @ drawable. You can see @ string. So in under values you have something called strings, right? So you can actually access this file using direct @. It will directly go to your XML. Don't worry about in which part it is. It knows whenever you just search for @ string, it will go to this file and it will get your details. Now you can see it says I want in my string.xml I want the value of app name. When I go to this, now you can see there is one string attribute or one string tag called app name, and this will return you my first. That is what you are actually getting over here called my first, which is your Android label. So this applications label is nothing but your this. And then you have a theme. We'll come to this theme which is styling, right? You can actually style up your background somehow. We'll come to that. So that is one thing. Now the next thing is here, you can see every time you create your activity, right? So one activity tag will be created for that corresponding thing. Now you can see that your activity, the first activity which got created is activity_main, right? So corresponding to activity_main, we have a class called main activity, right? Now you can see here in my first activity, it is actually connected to something called main activity here, right? So that is how it is connected with my activity. Now you can see here, in the same way in your second activity, your class name is second activity. Now this is your second activity's label, which is second activity unit. Now you can see here in my one of my activity, which is my main activity, right? There is one internal portion called intent filter, where what I'm doing here is I'm actually giving my action as a main action. which means whenever I try to get access the app, right, what happens is it will first check my manifest file. It will go to the activity where there is an intent filter which have got an action and category of this main and launcher. Now that will decide, okay, this activity is a main activity which I have to launch, and it will be launched. Now this launcher activity or main activity should be there only for one activity. If you want to change it to second activity here, you can actually get that. Just copy this part or cut it up and paste it here. It will automatically, the second activity automatically will become a launcher activity. Now if you try to run this, check out what happens. Now if I run this project, which is run as Android application, right? Now you can see what will happen here. Now you can see this was my first, which is my first activity in my my first app, right? Now what happened, we just changed that intent filter to the second activity. So we just see what happens now. Now you can see it directly opened my second activity, which means I have made my second activity as a startup activity. In this way, whenever you want, you can actually change up your startup activities. So let us keep it to this. And the best practice is always try to keep this for only one activity, right? Don't give it for multiple activities, fine? And now whenever you create a new activity, this will be created. Now let me show you that. Now you can see that I have got two different activities, activity main and second. Let me create one more activity here, new, other, Android activity, next, activity. Let me call it as third activity, which is third activity, and let me finish. Now you can see the layout got created, which is third activity underscore third, and you have the third class. Now if you go back here, now you can see that one more activity got created, which is third activity, right? So this is how your manifest file will be automatically regenerated with respect to the activities you are actually adding up to your Android app. Right? So that is your Android manifest file. So that is all about the complete folder structure you have across your complete Android project when you actually create it in your Eclipse. Fine. So this is what is a folder structure we have. Now, you guys have any questions till this part? So if you have any,
I'm good.
okay, Avila, go ahead.
Yeah. While you are in the emulator, right?
Yeah.
If you want to go to from one activity, right? From first activity, we want to go to the second activity in the emulator. How we will do that?
That is the next class. Yeah, I'll explain you that. Yeah, I was about to, I was expecting that question from one of you guys. Okay, we will get to that in our next class, because for layouts, right, the immediate class. So these two classes are something which is completely set up and all groundwork thing. So next class we'll actually sit on software, right? So yep, that is the first class which I'm going to explain. No worry.
No problem.
Okay. Now you can see here, Sandhya, right? This is my second. You can change for any activity, right? In this way.
Sure.
What about the font size?
Yeah, that was she was asking us.
Font
Can you
size,
change the font or color or style of that my second activity?
Yes. You can actually change anything you want here. You can actually go ahead with your style, right? You can actually give something called style over activity itself. Here, when you go back to your style, right? We'll get back to the styling part, okay? So here itself, you can actually see something called style, right? Styling. Now in this style itself, you can actually give what font you want, everything, right? Now whenever we give this style part in our values, so we have this styling part as a separate class. I'll give you a complete full-fledged class of styling. Maybe at that time you can actually, once that class is done, right, you can actually get into that, okay? Because for that style I have touched this part. So I don't want to confuse you guys now by touching this. First we'll understand basic things, then we'll go to style, okay?
Okay, fine.
Okay, any more questions? Yep. Go on.
I want to see how to use a linear layout inside relative layout.
How to use your linear layout inside relative. Okay, so how to use in the sense?
I mean, I've tried it,
Uh-huh.
but it was working actually.
It was.
I was not able to arrange the views in an order.
Okay, we'll come to that part, Geeta. Okay, we'll come to that part when we actually start layout. Okay? We'll come to that because I mean I think only you know that part. Okay, we'll come to that part when we actually done with linear and relative layout. Definitely we'll try with linear layout and relative layout inside defining your linear layout. Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, okay, fine.
No worries,
Thank
we'll do that. Yeah. Yes, some other question. Someone was asking some question. Even in Android, right, we say that we are using Java, right? But in Java process, how it gets compiled, it is .java. When compiled, we'll get a .class file, which is a bytecode, and when you load this .class file on JVM, right, and this JVM can be on any machine. It can be on Mac machine, Windows machine, your Chrome machine, Mozilla machine, or your Linux machine, or Solaris machine, wherever, right? If you have a JVM, you can actually run this class file and it will give you the same output as in all the machines. This is your Java compilation process. Now, how about Android? Now you can see here that your Java is basically a server technology program, which means you can actually create a server-based application, which is either a web application or a network-based application or a socket application, right, or UDP applications or a web services, anything, which is basically a server technology programs you can develop using your Java, right, or basically JVM. Now, so when we talk about server technologies, right, so when we compare the server technologies with the mobile or smartphone based applications, the power management and memory management may not be that important for the server technologies. I'm saying when we compare it to your small gadgets, right? So for that reason, designers of Android thought that they cannot use JVM directly into the Android framework, right? Because if JVM starts eating up so much of memory, right, then what happens? No phone, no smartphone or no gadget, right, can actually okay, so which part?
Upload the .class bytecode on any platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And any unique name after that I was like, can you please?
Okay, no issues. So to understood till the .class thing. Okay, so this .class is nothing but whenever you compile your .java files, you will get your .class, right? Now, when I say loading is nothing but when I click on this run button, or when I say right click and run as or run some application, right? So that is nothing but you are actually loading your class files onto something called your JVM, right? And the JVM is nothing but whenever you install JDKs in your machines, right, which means you got one component called JREs into it. Inside JRE, you will have a JVM. So JVM is nothing but Java Virtual Machine, which is a component responsible to convert your .class files and actually execute the program. That is what JVM does. Right, Nabila? Yes, no, can't say, didn't understood. You can give me any answer you want. So this is a normal compilation process of your Java, basically. Fine?
Okay.
Now I'm just comparing this with Android as such, right? So in Android, what happens here is, so you have your .java file anyways, right? Now this .java file is common. Why? Because we are going to develop even our Android, the backend things will be written on classes. Now those classes are written in Java. So whenever you take up a Java class, and that file will be of .java extension file. Right? Now during design time itself, what we'll do, we'll just compile it and till .class file will be generated for sure. Now this .class is nothing but a bytecode again. But what happens whenever you try to create your APK file, right? See here, until unless you create your APK file, which is this bin APK file, you cannot upload anything and you cannot run your Android application. Now for that, what happens from here is your class will be internally loaded to something called your DEX compiler. So DEX compiler is your Android compiler. So this DEX compiler is capable of taking the .class files, and what it will do is it will actually convert the .class files into .dx files or .dex files, right? So why it is converting? What it is actually doing is it is actually optimizing all the memory things, everything whatever internally we have got in Android, and will actually convert the .class files into DEX files. So these DEX files combinedly, you will actually combine all the DEX files, and combination of that we call it as a .apk file. So this is how your package is created. Now when you install your package APK into your mobile, you are actually interacting with your .dx files or DEX files. So this is how the compilation process in Android is being done. Fine. So that is how it is taken up in Android. Fine. So this is the compilation process we have in Android, and that is all about the thing called different folder structure we have,